What is happening, everyone? It's your boy Manny, and welcome back to episode 30 of Manny's Food Channel. And for today's episode, I'm going to be making one of the most popular desserts in the world today. So for today's episode, I'm going to be making a quick and easy tiramisu. Now, unfortunately, I went to about 4 to 6 different grocery stores, and I was, for some reason, unable to find ladyfingers. But what I did see on the shelf was Oreos, and it is one of my all-time favorites. So I decided, you know what, I haven't had Oreos in a while, why don't we replace the ladyfingers with Oreos? And with Christmas coming up, you can put your different variation and touch on your tiramisu, such as adding some eggnog to your ladyfingers when you're dipping it in, or you can add some alcohol, some marsala, some brandy, whatever it is that you want to do to kind of jazz up and add that extra touch to your tiramisu. So without further ado, time to get going on this plate of deliciousness. So we're going to start off by making the Sabayon for the tiramisu, but just before that, I'm going to show you a couple things that you need to do in order to make the Sabayon. One of them is have a double boiler, and basically what a double boiler is a pot that has some water in there so that way you can cook something over steam indirectly. So what I'm going to use is a glass bowl here. If you're going to use a glass bowl, make sure that it is heat resistant so that way it doesn't crack or break as you're cooking whatever it is on top of your double boiler. Next, you want to add a bit of space so that way the steam can escape from a double boiler. So what I'm going to do, I just added a towel, and that way I'm going to place this bowl here on top of the towel so that way some steam can evaporate. And third is you want to put just enough water in the pot to create steam. You don't want to put too much water at the bottom so that way it touches the bowl. Again, you're trying to cook whatever it is by steam and not by the heat itself. So what I'm going to do, this bowl is at room temperature. Always start at room temperature when you're cooking something over a double boiler. I have some egg yolks. And I'm going to add in sugar. Now we're going to use the steam to cook the egg yolks. And if you find that your egg yolks are getting a little too hot, you can definitely remove it off the heat, move it back onto the heat, and continue to do so until your eggs are cooked. You're looking for a very light, fluffy egg yolks. And the one way to know whether or not it's ready or not is you'll be able to trace the number 8, which we call the ribbon stage. So now we're just going to give this a nice mix. And remember, you don't want to scramble your eggs. If you feel that it's getting too hot, then just remove the Sabayon off the heat so that way it cools it down a little bit, then you can place it back on. So I've been whisking this for around 4 to 5 minutes, and to know whether or not your egg and sugar mixture is ready or your Sabayon is ready, it should be nice and smooth. It should be lighter in color, but you'll know when it's in the ribbon stage when you'll be able to do, we like to do a figure 8. So just by drawing out the 8 with this Sabayon here, and if it holds the number 8 for a couple seconds, you know it's ready. But mine is not doing that right now, it's still too smooth. So I'm going to continue to cook out this Sabayon. So now that I've finished mixing it, I'm going to test it out to see whether or not I'm at that ribbon stage. So I'm going to draw out an 8. And you can see that once I arrive at the very end of drawing out my 8, you can still see the number there. So now I have completed this stage, and we can move on to adding the rest of the ingredients. You can see it's nice and thick, silky, smooth, but there's no lumps. We didn't scramble our eggs, we just completely cooked them at the temperature that they needed to be, and incorporate that sugar as well. So once the Sabayon is ready, I'm just going to give this a nice mix. You can see it's extremely smooth, and there's no lumps. That's what's most important when you're making a Sabayon. Next, we're going to fold in some mascarpone cheese. I might have to switch bowls in a bit because I think my whipped cream might not fit in, but we'll see once I mix in the mascarpone cheese. Just give it a nice fold, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss in just a touch of vanilla extract as well. I couldn't get my hands on fresh vanilla, so unfortunately I wouldn't be able to add that in, but vanilla extract works. And then just give this a nice fold. So once the mascarpone cheese is mixed in there really nice, you can start folding in your whipped cream. I didn't add any sugar into here. It's only just cold whipped cream. And I'm going to, in batches, slowly mix in the whipped cream. So once you mix in the whipped cream, if you feel that's a little bit too liquidy, don't worry too much about it, because we're going to be putting it in the fridge after and letting it set in the fridge for around 2 to 3 hours. Now, unfortunately, when I went to about 4 grocery stores, I was not able to find lady fingers anywhere. I don't know if it's because of COVID or whether or not it's because Christmas is coming, everybody wants to make tiramisu, but it is what it is. And because I like putting my twist on things, I saw Oreos on the shelf, and I haven't had Oreos in a long time, and I said, who doesn't like Oreos? So rather than using ladyfingers, I'm going to be using Oreos. In this bowl here, I only have very strong espresso. I don't drink, but if you do and you like a little bit of that alcoholic flavor, you can add some coffee liqueur, some brandy, some marsala, whatever you'd like to add to kind of jazz it up. So just like I'm going to do with the ladyfingers, I'm going to do the same thing with the Oreos. I'm just going to dunk it in for 2 seconds and place it in my mold here. And you don't want to do it more than that because it gets too soggy and you still want that bit of a bite or that bit of a crunch. So I'm going to continue to layer all the Oreos at the bottom, or in your case, if you're using ladyfingers, ladyfingers. Next, I'm going to add a generous layer of that delicious mascarpone whipped cream that we made earlier, and evenly and generously spread out all that cream. Once you've finished evenly distributing the mascarpone whipped cream, then you can add in your next layer of ladyfingers or the Oreos. Once you finish layering your second layer of either Oreos or ladyfingers, put on another layer of mascarpone whipped cream. Put a nice heaping and generous amount on the very top of your tiramisu. And then I'm going to cover it up. Leave it in the fridge for about 2 to 3 hours. I'll probably leave it for around 3 hours just to be safe that it's set properly. And in the meantime, we're going to move on to preparing the chocolate sauce to add as a garnish for our tiramisu. Now for the chocolate sauce, it's extremely easy. There's not a lot of ingredients to it. But first I'm going to start off by making a roux. So what I have here is equal parts all-purpose flour and butter. I'm just going to melt the butter quickly and cook off the flour. So once the butter is melted and the flour is well incorporated, this here is our roux. And what you want to do is you want to cook off this roux for around 5 minutes or so. So we can toast off the flour and cook off the flour to produce a very nice velvety and smooth chocolate sauce. And once your roux has been toasted off and cooked, our next step will be to sieve some cocoa powder as well as the sugar, so that we will remove any of the lumps within the two before we incorporate the milk. Once you've sieved the sugar as well as the cocoa powder, give this a really nice mix. And I have a bowl here that's half evaporated milk and half homo milk. I just use the evaporated milk because I wanted to use it out for my fridge. But you can use homo milk for that extra fat and flavor, or you can use skim milk as well if you want it a bit on the leaner side. But this milk here, I just heated up in the microwave just as it's about to boil over, because we want the temperature to be similar as the temperature that's in our pot. And then gradually I'm gonna toss in the milk, and I'm gonna grab a whisk here in a minute and slowly mix in the milk. So that way when we use a whisk, we can remove any excess lumps. And I'm gonna continue to cook this out until we got a really nice and smooth chocolate sauce. And just before I do that, I'm gonna toss in a little bit of vanilla extract. And now I'm gonna let it reduce on medium to low heat until I get a nice thick consistency. Now once you feel that your chocolate sauce is at a very nice thick consistency, you can see that there's no more lumps left. You use a whisk to remove any of those excess lumps. Just to finish it off, I'm gonna toss in a knob of butter. And what that's gonna do is not only gonna add a bit of richness to the chocolate sauce, but it's also gonna give a finishing shine as well as a finishing touch to the chocolate sauce. So just melt in that knob of butter, whisk it in, and then set it aside at room temperature. If you're not going to use it right away, you can certainly leave it in the fridge. But if you're going to use it right away, I would leave it at room temperature. And if you're going to use it the next day, temper the chocolate sauce at room temperature before you start to use it. So now I'm going to set this aside, let it rest, and then we can start playing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can add your variation and twist on this dish. Because Christmas is coming out, eggnog is in season, you might want to get some eggnog and maybe toss it into your coffee, give that a nice mix, and then dip your ladyfingers in there. That's one option. Or if you want an alcoholic twist on there, you can add some marsala, you can add some coffee liqueur, or any kind of alcohol that you feel that you enjoy, that you want to add your twist and kind of make it your own dish. But as a tradition on my channel, I always have to do the taste test, so today is no different. Without further ado, cheers. You know what? Replacing the ladyfingers with Oreos might have been a blessing in disguise, because that is freaking delicious. The mascarpone whipped cream is extremely light, not too sweet, and the Oreos that we added within those layers kind of added that extra sweetness that we need that doesn't push it over the top. It's very light, airy, fluffy, and it's complemented by that not too thick, but just right chocolate syrup that we have at the bottom. And you know what? To kind of bring this dish all together, you can add any kind of sour or tart fruit. What I added here is some raspberries, and these ones aren't fully ripe yet, so they're pretty sour. And it kind of cuts down the richness a little bit and kind of balances out that dish. But it is freaking delicious. So definitely have a try. Let me know how it is. And if you enjoyed this video, please give my video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and please everyone, stay safe during the holidays. and I look forward to seeing everybody next week.